Okay, so the cloud recording is on. It's 7:35 p.m. This is the Water Resources Committee on January 2nd, 2024. So to get us started, I will do a roll call vote of members present so we can establish a quorum. Say if you're present, if you are. Stephen Schmidt,
I'm present.
Brian Lynch,
Present.
John Markowitz,
Present.
Brian Clemens,
Present.
Dave McKiernan,
Present.
and Les Fox is present. So we have a quorum. So why don't we get going? Let me first see if the committee will agree to something, if I can share my screen. First of all, I have to, this always gets me screwed up. Hang on. This is the agenda that was distributed earlier. Now, hopefully I can find this. No, I'm going to show you next is what I propose to take things in a different order, because I realized I about to make the same mistake I did before, which is putting the easy stuff first, thinking it would be easier to get going on the main event, and that could lead to a meltdown and distraction of rabbit holes. So I'm proposing we do things in this order, which is after we review and approve the minutes, do our correspondence, which are brief, talk about the main event, which is the RFP and its status. And then we can also talk about my review of the funding sources that are available for this project. And then the next big thing, I believe, would be the master plan updates, which I would ask Brian to lead us through. So do I have the committee's agreement or consensus that we can adopt this revised order here? Same items, just a different order. I don't hear any objections. No objections?
Objections.
Okay. So the first thing is to review and approve the minutes, which hopefully you've all had a chance to. How do I get rid of this stupid menu? So, these are the minutes that Brian sent around earlier.
Yep.
And if you've all had a chance to look them over, which I have, I would entertain a motion to adopt and approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, and let's take a roll call vote. Brian Lynch.
Aye.
John Markowitz.
Markowitz, aye.
Brian Clemens. Brian, are you on
Aye.
mute? Okay. And Dave McKiernan.
McKiernan, aye.
And Steve Schmidt. That I didn't call you already. Okay, I don't see. I don't see. No, she's not here. So this is the group we have tonight. Janet's not here, at least not yet. So the next thing on the agenda, per usual.
So Les, you could hit that X next to the all tools to kind of close out that menu on the left, if that's what you wanted to do earlier.
Even a little toolbar at the bottom, you mean?
No, on the left-hand side, there's a thing that says all.
Oh, yeah. Let me get rid of that. Thank you. It didn't used to do that. That's a new feature, which I don't like about Acrobat. The other one is to talk about our correspondence. So one of the pieces of correspondence you kind of know about, which is that we, along with chairs of all the other boards in towns, got a request from the town planner to provide him an update on their status of their action items on the town's master plan. And so that's one of the pieces of correspondence we've received. The other thing is, and we're going to talk about that later a little bit when we get into the master plan updates, if we can get to that, and I think we will. Alec also asked for the boards to provide their input to the town annual report, an annual event, and that's something that will be due, that chair is responsible for pulling that together. That will be due sometime, I think the due date he's asking for is mid-February. I had hoped to rough out something on that today for us to talk about. I did not do that. So I will send you all something over the next few days or so. And if you have additional thoughts on that, send them to me and me only. And then I'll present an item for discussion at our next regular meeting where we could talk about our input to the progress report or town annual report. And as we were talking a little bit earlier, thanks to the efforts from Mr. Clements, we now have up on the town's website the full CDM 2002 report, which is called the final report, Water Resources Analysis and Study, December. It was actually in two releases, February and then December 2002. So now it's up on the town website and includes 3 large maps that are so large you'll need to pan around to see what's in them. But they include lots of information, including the factor trace analysis that was done as part of that study. So it is a very important report. We wanted to get that up on the website so that the consultants who will be responding to our RFP will be able to find it when they look at the list of resources we're going to recommend. So that's all I have for correspondence. I don't know whether anybody else has anything they'd like to introduce at this time. All right. So
one thing is Grant Garvin has said that after the holidays he would look at the fracture trace analysis in that 2000 report.
Yeah, that he would. Okay, good. Yeah, you can. And by the way, which I discovered on my last adventure at the library, I did not open them up to inspect them, you know, in their full E-size glory. But by title and appearance, they appear to be the same maps that you had scanned, Brian, and they are available in the 3-ring binder that's in the box up there. That's volume 1. So if Grant wants to look at them, he doesn't need to look at the small maps that are in the online version of the 2002 report. He could look at it's up there in the box, which is handy. I didn't realize that was there. Yeah, well, thanks for him to offering that. I think that's great if he's willing to do that. So the next thing is to talk about the RFP itself. Can you all see this Town of Foxborough Townwide Water Resource Plan?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is the version 11 that let me just double check I did put it up. Yes. So I went through it and I made a few annotations for us to discuss. So if you would like, I will step through that and invite discussion along the way. My goal is that we can ship this tonight, basically getting it back to Rajan to put the final touches on, which I don't think will amount to much, and then get it on the town's website for a posting and probably a delivery to targeted recipients that are felt to be bona fide and qualified respondents for this area of work.
Yeah, it appeared that there were no changes made to our scope of work.
No,
And
I
so
didn't
it looks
see
like
any. I'll show
the
you
first changes.
yeah, everything down to task 2.3 is no, I didn't find anything different.
Yeah.
No, in section 2.3, task 2.3 went under scope of work. This is what you see here in color is a question from me. The language in the current report says recommend the best favor for Foxborough to document and evaluate water needs, the quantity of water, et cetera, and how contaminants are transported to other parts of town. I thought, that sounds strange. What if contaminants should be coming in from other places, like upstream from some other town or wherever? Should we adjust the language to make this a more general thing as opposed to implying that we're concerned about transport from one part of the town to the other. We'd like to understand how water moves around in general. But should we change this language to be something like just how contaminants are transported throughout the town? So that would cover whether they're coming from within the town or from without the town. What do you think?
I think it's valid.
I think it makes sense.
Maybe-
Les, one small nit, it's on the line above the second line in that paragraph says quantity water of. I think it should say quantity of water
Yeah.
available.
Good catch. Hang on. Brian, I think you're trying to. No, did I not print out a hard copy? I thought I had. Bear with me. Brian's saying he felt like he wasn't ready. I always seem to manage to not have something I need. I thought I had printed out a hard copy of that RFP just so I could mark it up. Brian, do you have a copy handy for you to mark up?
I'm taking notes on it.
Okay.
I actually didn't, I printed the pages after this, but I didn't.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
apologize. I thought I had printed this out to help me with this exercise. Oh, well, sorry about that. So that's a good catch, John. Quantity of water available, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Moving right along, no changes, no changes, no changes. Not for me anyway. I got down to the end here on item O. And I didn't know whether this was suggesting that we're expecting the respondent to propose a public outreach and stakeholder input program of some sort, or we just want their thoughts on whether to do that or provide a framework for it, or what was this thinking here? Brian, you and others were involved in drafting this language. I was just calling, what do we really want to do here? To me, if they thought they were going to actually develop a public outreach program, that could be a lot of work. And might not be the most important thing.
On one of the earlier meetings, didn't we say that that would be too much effort? We probably didn't have the funds for that.
Well, I don't know, but it's in the current version of the RFP, so that's why I flagged it. What should we do about this now?
I thought we had talked about not asking them to conduct a public outreach because they weren't going to get that much money for this.
Okay, I do kind of remember that, but nonetheless, this is the language here that's in the RFP, which says explain how public outreach and stakeholder input will be incorporated. There are no current plans to do a public outreach and gather stakeholder input. So should we strike O altogether, or what do you want to do here?
Or should we ask them to prepare the materials for a public outreach?
Well, again, that could be a significant piece of work compared to all the other things. Where does it rank in terms of importance? That could also come out in an itemized list of how much it will cost for each chunk of work, which is another way to address it.
One of their deliverables was a PowerPoint presentation. I thought
Yeah, but it doesn't get into this level of detail.
yeah.
We'll get to that later. Now hold that thought. So we need to figure out what we're going to do about item O here.
I recall that item O was added at one of our meetings. It wasn't something Janet and Stephen and I had originally come up with. So somehow we decided that needed to be in there. But I think I agree with what Stephen's saying is we didn't think there was a lot of budget for it.
Yeah,
Well,
plus,
there's a limited budget, and the trick will be to see how far we can go with that limited budget.
plus we asked for a PowerPoint presentation so we could make available to a lot.
Yeah, but that might not address. I mean, I'm just quickly scrolling down here to the deliverables.
Yeah, so Les, what's the final budget that we have?
50K.
Okay.
I have a detailed spreadsheet on that, but we'll not get into the weeds on that just yet.
Okay,
Where is that section on deliverables? Oh, this sidebar's popped up again. There's just a very short bullet on deliverables, went right past
I
it.
think when we were discussing item O, what I remember about that discussion was we said that if it was possible for the consultant to talk to some of the larger businesses about their concerns about water. But that's the extent of the discussion that I remember.
You could be right. Does ring a bell. Here's the current list of deliverables. Written report documenting the status of Boxborough's water resources and recommendations for managing them in the future as determined under sections 1112 and 20 above. A PowerPoint presentation for the town's use for presentations to boards and the public. So whatever that presentation is, it should be suitable for public consumption, but it may not address exactly what the implication was in that earlier item I brought. And then the GIS data layers that we talked about.
I would say we take item O out because for $50,000, we can't afford to do that.
Right.
Well, here's an alternative. Instead of saying will be incorporated, we could say might be incorporated. I mean, the consultant may feel that they need public input in order to do this.
True enough.
Mhm.
I'm a little skeptical about asking the public for their input. At this point, I think it's early days, but I don't know. I mean, they're going to be able to get a list of all the PWSs in town and understand what DEP knows about them. I personally am looking to them to tell us about the rest of town where it's mostly private wells and no one has a good handle on water availability or quality in those areas of town, and help develop a plan. Now, should they be encouraged to talk to homeowners about what they feel about that? I don't know. To me, it sounds like it could be a large effort without much payback, you know? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, if they're not required to do it, but they may want to, I don't think you actually have to give them an instruction to do it. They could do as they feel they need without being directed. We're just concerned about the results they give us.
Yeah. Well, what if
Well, and even if it doesn't have to be in phase one, because these items A through O aren't necessarily all going to be in phase one. So what about the possibility that some subsequent phase we are going to want to do some public outreach?
Yeah, you just reminded me of something that, at least in my mind, isn't completely clear, and that is how the detailed list A through O interleaves with phasing of the work, except as described in the very beginning. But anyway, about item O, what if we just made a simple change here? Explain how public outreach and stakeholder input could be incorporated into a study, which could be, as you say, it could be a different phase. I don't know. I'm ambivalent about it.
So how about if you explain if public outreach and stakeholder input should be incorporated into the study?
Ask them to tell us whether it should be.
Yeah. I mean, they're sort of the expert on providing it. So if we're putting it out there, but they can tell us, no, that's not necessary for this reason or that reason, rather than making it deliverable.
Well, I mean, if you look at the first sentence under task 2.3, it clearly states, to the extent possible, task 2.2 shall address topics A through O.
Right.
So right there it says to the extent possible. So the consultant could say, well, it's not possible under this funding.
That's true.
Yeah, and I didn't want, by the way, on that very note, I didn't want to tell them this list has to be trimmed so that it fits 50K. I mean, I think we want to encourage them to do as much as you can, guiding us with the 50K, and tell us what you recommend to be done in subsequent phases with additional funding.
Well, do we ask them for a breakdown by phase as we listed here? Not phase by item.
I'm suggesting later on that they give us a price list for each of the task elements so that we can then iterate with them and come up with a final agreement on what's going to be done for what money.
There is a breakdown required, Brian.
Yes, there is. It's later, right? That's coming. So what should we do with item O at this point? Dave, you had some good language. What was it again?
Well, I said, explain if public outreach and stakeholder input should be incorporated into the study.
There you go.
Okay, I like that. You got that, Brian?
Yep.
Okay, good, Dave. Okay, there's a short list of deliverables. I didn't find anything there to add. It's pretty broad and it covers a lot.
Do we want to get a hard copy or would we just print out from PDF? I like to work with hard copies when I'm reviewing something.
It'll add to our costs and they'll have to deliver it. I mean, if they send it electronically, people at town hall can print copies for anybody.
Well, it
Yeah,
depends
okay.
on the shape of the documents.
Pardon?
It depends on the shape of the documents.
Well, yeah, are you expecting large size paper as part of this or
Well,
just stand?
No, I have a feeling that in order to describe some of the things that you've asked, they're going to need large size paper.
Well, that's a possibility.
For the RFP you're talking about, Brian?
No, I think he's saying that if some of the report material,
the
if they wish to
deliverable.
produce, say, e-size drawings or something large format, how will that be handled?
So it's
But
if you
section
ask,
5 is referring to the RFP.
No, I mean, in terms of the report that we're asking for, what if they want to write a report that includes large scale maps? Of their
If you look at item number C under task 2.3, clearly there's going to be maps associated with that.
Yeah, but Brian was asking specifically hard copy for the output. Should we ask them and require them to produce hard copy or assume that we can produce it from the electronic submission?
depends on the detail of what's going to come out. Could be very extensive, expensive to produce. I would think if they supply one hard copy, then we could at least send it out for reproduction.
This can all be worked out at the contract stage.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's do that. There's a couple of ways to skin that cat, right? Make one master copy, distribute it, or verify that it can all be reproduced locally.
So, but Brian, what was your comment? I'm not sure I understood what you were referring to with not having a PDF, like having a, you would want them to deliver a Word document?
A reproducible. PDFs aren't totally reproducible sometimes.
Why? Meaning what exactly?
Well, the PDF, you know, the large format stuff could have a lot more detail in it than what the PDF can display. I mean, the Adobe is very good, but it's not perfect.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get. I'm not an expert in graphic arts and reproduction technology. In the old days, you just asked Fred Stone to do it. You know. I don't know. We can. I think who said that? Why don't we work out those details in the conference? You know. We're saying here electronic and hard copy. Well, what we want is electronic versions that are suitable for making large format reproductions, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how to define it now in any detail, so I don't know whether it's worth putting it in here and possibly getting it wrong or only getting it half right.
That could be part of their proposal review, I think, Les. You know, when they come back with their proposal, if there's they might describe it, or we might have questions.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody want to do anything more with the deliverable section?
Yeah, change that C to get rid of the
Yeah.
get rid of the italic. It's jumping out at me.
Well, you got a sharp eye, Dave. Are you a
We were
proofreader?
actually
Are you a proofreader?
on that item C, we were expecting input from Alec on that.
Yeah. Did he ever give us anything?
Nope.
Brian, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. Make a note to yourself, and I will too. And he's been out until just today over the holiday, so I haven't had a chance to talk to him about anything. If I would say let's accept this, and if Alec has some specific language he'd like to see there for C, we'll just accept it. I mean, I'm sure it would be sensible.
Hmm.
Okay, proposal contents. I only highlight this and that, at some point we'll have to say when we finally settle what time of day and so on and so on. And Rajan will be the point of contact. So that's correct. Nothing wrong with it, just highlighting that that's a blank that needs to be filled in when we want it to be delivered. So I hadn't really given any hard thought to when we think that needs to be done and delivered.
So is that blank line there is something that
Yeah, that means
put
to
in?
fill in a date of the year.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that it's blank because it's going to be 30 days after it gets posted or something, depending upon when it gets posted, right? That's how I interpreted what
Oh,
that.
that highlight is I put that in there. It's not part of the document, but I mean, we could put any date in there, but there might be, maybe there's a standard process that's due a certain amount of time after posting. I'm not sure
That-
about that.
Yeah, that's what I would think. There has to be that anytime these RFPs go out, they have to be available for a certain amount of time by some kind of regulation. I don't know.
No, you're probably right. So what we need to do then is let Rajan fill in that blank once he's ready to post it, right?
I think so.
So that he can meet the 30-day, whatever it is, posting requirement. Okay.
So we could ask him if there is a time. What do we mean exactly by posting? Are we talking the mass procurement site?
I'm not sure what applies in our rules. I think it might mean nothing more than just posting on we have a website, what do we call it? Procurements and RFPs or something. It's on our
Proposals.
website.
I thought it was proposals.
Yeah, that might be the rule we're working with there. I'm not really sure.
Then if we send a copy individually to a particular firm, we need to make sure that they get the minimum number of days.
Right.
Why don't we run this by Rajan?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, going on. Okay, this is something I found, I think, Brian, you had also said, this is obviously people don't like to do this kind of work repetitively. So this is a cut and paste error from another RFP related to a building project. So this is an error. I'm just wondering, this is all about if you're doing a building project, what do you know about the Mass Building Code, blah, blah, blah. Is there a similar language we need to put in here for an RFP focus on what we're doing? I have no idea. What would somebody have to demonstrate knowledge of in order to meet the spirit of this requirement? I'm not sure anything applies here.
Maybe a geologist familiar with water.
Well,
Something like
I added some language further down, which might take care of that in terms of qualifications, but
I would say you want to have familiarity with the Massachusetts regulations on water supply and DEP's quality and quantity.
yeah, how extensive do we want to make that? I mean, the CMR
I don't,
three,
I think
drinking water standards, et cetera, et cetera.
that's about it.
This is a section that was added by the attorney or Rajon.
One or the other.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where. I have a suspicion it was added by the attorney.
It does establish a standard to which we'd be looking for minimums.
But this is quite
One of
clearly
the things,
this is the
one of
cut
the
and
things
paste.
I wanted to make a criteria was experience with new source approval for bedrock wells.
I think it's got to be more extensive than that even. It's got to be,
Remember, we're not asking them to drill wells as part of this project. We want them to know about water.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but what I'm concerned about is Grant's comment that CDM's well driller, he didn't think was a real bedrock company. And so I would like to have some emphasis on the fact that whoever the well driller is going to be, even if that happens in subsequent phases, that they have bedrock experience.
well, remember, this isn't about drilling a well in this
No.
RFP.
it's about familiarity with water and water supply regulation.
Right, but once we choose a consultant, if we're going to do drilling later, we may want the same consultant.
But you don't have to choose them if you don't like them. Or don't think they're fully qualified for that phase of work. Or you could divide it up.
Well, our requirement is that they address as many of those A through O tasks as possible. I would expect a consultant who submits this is going to propose who their well driller is going to be. Maybe, in fact, maybe we should ask for that.
Are you tying this too closely to an outfit that's capable of drilling wells as opposed to somebody who would partner with somebody who would drill a well if it ever came to that?
I would say the well drilling would be a subsidiary contract to the consultant. It's not necessarily a part of the final.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would think that that's further down the road.
Yeah, there's no money in this bucket here for doing well drilling.
Wouldn't number 6 cover that, the introduction of the project team members, the qualifications, experience? I mean, isn't that?
Yeah, it's kind of like belt and suspenders. You tell them there, and then down here you might say something.
I know in the 2002 study, it was very much CDM and their well driller who were making the proposal.
Yeah, but they drilled wells.
Well, eventually we're going to drill wells too.
Well, but okay, but it doesn't have to be the same people. That's the point.
I don't want to
Well
be tied to a well driller that we don't want.
Do you really need to be that specific about their
I mean,
qualifications at this point?
isn't it possible we don't need to drill any wells to answer these questions?
Yeah.
I think it's possible. Given
I
the current
think
situation, where would you even begin to think about drilling well? That we haven't already done it.
Right.
to
Well,
me,
one of the things Ted Marine has talked about is redeveloping the wells we've already drilled. And is that one of the tasks that we've asked for?
No, we haven't.
No,
And that would be assuming that we'll be preparing to tie them into some kind of distribution system is way out of scope for this project. We just want to know, is there enough water to continue doing what we've been doing? And if not, what do we do?
Aren't there some evaluation criteria where we look at their qualifications? You don't really have to specify what the qualifications are, we just evaluate them.
Well, we got some more stuff further on.
I think it's down further.
Well, we'll come back to this in a minute.
As part of the selection process.
See, here's some things I added to the qualifications and selection process, qualifications and experience scoring. Again, this had the flavor of a recycled RFP.
Yeah.
I added expertise in soil sciences, superficial and deep water resources, hydrogeology, water distribution, and system planning. Add some more things if you like. Demonstrated understanding of and experience with water resource science, engineering, and multi-decade planning. To me, those are the kind of things that I'm looking for now, as opposed to a well driller. Depth of experience with water resources studies and planning at similar scale. In other words, towns like us.
Yep.
Yep. Those are good ads.
Yeah, prior experience with similar town-wide studies and planning.
well, not just planning, we want permitting. They have to be able to figure out a way to permit.
Brian, can you make a note? That's a good one. Can you make a note to add permitting to that bullet?
What would we be permitting?
Well, in order to do anything, we're going to have to work with the water resource agency that says how we can take water out from one place and another. So that's one thing that's permitting, and plus we have to be able to satisfy the criteria not to withdraw too much from one basin. So I think we're already get our hands tied.
Well, again, what if we don't drill any new wells and don't need to have any more permits? We're just going to try to figure out whether we can continue doing what we've been doing, which is making sure everyone's privately owned well will be capable of delivering safe drinking water and what they need to do to ensure that.
Well, the problem is going to be that safe drinking water is eventually going to require treatment of all the wells.
Well, that's what they should be getting into. Is it feasible to continue relying upon, private wells and if necessary, point treatment, which could be very expensive.
Yep.
So can you go back to number 10 again?
Yeah.
The point I'd like to make is I think that number 10 is these are kind of regulations and laws, I'm not sure that, other than maybe permitting laws, what this individual would need to have knowledge of. So if there's no specific laws, regulations, codes that the person would need to have, or that firm, then I think that's just a copy paste error and it can be removed.
Oh, I know it is. I know where that language came from. It came from a public safety building project.
Yeah, no, right. But what I'm saying is, unless there's something, kind of equivalent to that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We don't need it. We tell me what the laws are. What federal laws or Massachusetts codes do they need to be familiar with to do this work for us? Otherwise, we take it out.
I agree with Dave.
Sorry, what was that?
I just said I agree with Dave. I don't think you need that paragraph.
I would say
I think you need something,
federal water laws.
right? I think
The regulations of the DEP and water quality acts that exist in the state of Massachusetts.
EPA.
EPA maybe, but I think it's more about the local permitting of drinking water, which are very specific.
So we change that to say assurance of knowledge of Massachusetts water quality.
Drinking water criteria and permit. DEP has very specific regulations. The Water Resource Board does also. And all those things have to be looked at.
Right.
Yeah, how much of a list do we want to put here? I mean,
I think that's the only thing you want to look at, is just say the drinking water regulations and the Water Resource Commission.
you know, we got the drinking water standards. We have CMR mumble, which you guys always know.
Yeah.
I would just say, you know, knowledge of Massachusetts drinking water standards and regulations related to, that's it, you know.
Yeah.
But somebody, and just in case it does matter, they ought to have some familiarity with the new source approval process so they can speak to that. Because at some point they might need to say, well, you can't do one here because of X, Y, and Z.
Yep. Well, that's all part of what the DEP has in their regulations.
Right.
Well, I think, Brian, you mentioned the Water Resources Commission, the State Water Resources Commission. That should be in there too, because they have a different set of regulations.
They certainly do. That's why I mentioned it. Especially where we're going to be, anything we develop on and this is my opinion, any place we're going to find enough water to be concerned about developing is going to be in areas that already have, how should we say, water that's already spoken for from either Acton or from Littleton.
So, Brian, did you capture enough of a thought about what we should put in there for item number 10? Knowledge of Massachusetts regulations and requirements to meet the drinking water standards, or something like that.
It would be the drinking water regs, and the standards are part of that.
Okay, drinking water regulations. I mean, anybody who's worth anything will know what this needs, right? So,
Right.
And new source approval would be part of that as well.
Yep.
okay.
Right.
Well, I move that we let Brian finalize this language for number 10.
I'll second that.
Anybody have any objection to that? We in agreement with
Nope.
that? Okay. Again, item 11, photos I don't think are germane here. That was a holdover from the cut and paste of a building project. So, but we would like to see work samples, other studies they've done.
Isn't that part of the selection process, though?
Well, we're inviting them to provide additional information that they think will add weight to their submission, including work samples. So,
Okay.
and then when you evaluate them, you look at the quality of the work samples that people provide. That's one thing you can do. I mean, I know when we did the building committee's RFP, the respondents provided material covering all their recent proposals and submissions and projects that got successfully funded for the past, several years. So this is part and parcel of what people do.
Do our town RFPs include a limit on the number of pages that you could a bidder could submit? Or can they submit as much as they want?
Well,
They could dump a lot of data on you if you ask for that additional information.
I don't want to encourage people to go crazy, but I think most people will be reasonable about that. I mean,
Cost them to produce it too.
yeah. This is number 12. I added something to around the whole fee structure. So we asked the respondents fees for providing the work described in section 2.0, the scope of work, to be inclusive of subcontractors' fees. and provide a breakdown of estimated reimbursable expenses. I'm saying we want them to especially provide the cost estimates for all the subtasks A through O in task 2.3. And sort of parenthetically, this will be useful in helping guide what weight or emphasis we want to add to each of them in the first phase. That is what we communicate in the interview. In other words, there's going to be a negotiation. The long list we've got here is going to be a big number, probably much more than what we've got in our budget. But we want them to tell us, well, what would it cost to get these pieces of work done? And then we work with them to figure out, well, how far we'll go with the budget that we've got. And then the rest you will be able to submit a proposal on in the future.
Are you
Sure.
suggesting that they submit a cost for tasks that they're not including in phase one?
Well, I mean, you have a list of things that you would like them to address. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it'd be nice to get some sense of how much this list would cost us.
I don't think it's fair for them to propose costs on things on work that isn't going to be part of phase one. I don't
Yeah,
think
but
that's a realistic expectation.
But we have here reevaluate Boxborough's Aquifer Protection District zoning overlay district. Now that could be a huge amount of work. That could consume the whole budget.
Then it won't be in phase one.
Well, again, and as far as I read this thing, there's no delineation between the 50K budget limit and what is in phase one. 50K is to kind of get this proposal out the door and see what comes back, and then decide what we're going to fund, right?
Have we defined phase one?
No, that's my point. I don't think it's really accurately defined. What is actually in phase one?
So,
It's task 2.1, 2.2,
okay,
and
the scope of
2.3.
this work for the first phase of the proposed plan.
Yeah, but so that would suggest that all of these things are in phase
Yeah.
one,
Right.
which I think is not realistic. We need some language that allows
Well,
us to.
we said as many of those items as can be done with our budget are going into phase one.
Yeah, and that's what I would like them to tell us, what things they'd like to throw off the bus because of the cost, so we can have a discussion with them about that. And why?
But I don't think it's fair for them to put a detailed cost estimate on tasks they're not going to be doing. I think that's absurd.
Say that again, Brian?
I don't think it's fair to ask them to do a detailed cost estimate for tasks that aren't going to be part of phase one.
Well,
It's a question.
I mean,
What do
it
you mean
takes
by-
time to put a cost estimate together.
Right.
well, it depends on how detailed it gets too. I hear what you're saying.
So how will we trim down this list to something that will fit the budget?
I think we're asking the consultant to do that.
Yeah. I don't think we want to do that now, Les.
What?
It's
Have
not-
them tell us what on this laundry list they'll do for the budget we've got.
Well, yeah, let them come back to us, I think, is the point, rather than us starting to pick away at it. I mean, this is
Yeah. No, I want to keep it open-ended, but I'd like to have some sense of, if you're making a value judgment that some things should be deferred because they're expensive up front, you might be better off doing some of the other stuff first. I'd like to know their thinking on that and the rationale. Doesn't that make sense? Anyway, explain to me what you propose for phase one and the budget you would have for each task, and then why you excluded certain things. That's it. They don't have to have a detailed explanation. They just have to say why they cut the line at some point.
Well, that's very different from saying we want a cost estimate for each task.
Well, right, but in their mind, they'll have to have some idea what cost would be so they can do that work, but it doesn't have to be detailed. I mean, they could just say, we're choosing not to address, items X, Y, and Z in this proposal because we think that they will be too costly at this time. And you just tell us about that. Doesn't that make, I mean, that, to me, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, but we haven't communicated that that's what we're expecting.
No, we haven't done that in this, but that might come across in the interview process.
Well, actually, that, that would be it would be much easier to explain that at a pre-bid conference.
Absolutely, and don't forget the pre-bid conference. By the way, that's not in here, is it? The pre-bid conference.
No, it's not.
I'll make a note. Very good. Yes, no, how did I forget that? We talked about that, but it's not in here. So we need to put a section in here that says there will be a pre-bid conference. Of course, everyone gets invited to that. Anybody who wants to respond, they all get the same information. People ask questions, we can answer them, but everyone gets the same answers, and then they go off and write their RFP. Or they
Or
write their
there's a list
proposal.
of questions that we have to get back to them on,
Right,
and everybody gets that as well.
Yeah. Correct. That may be a good way to address it, Brian. Try to sort this question out during a pre-bid conference so they have a sense of what we're trying to do here. We want to get a lot of bang for the buck. That's what we're trying to do here for a study that isn't going to spend a lot of money on hardware, but we're hoping that by intelligent research of available data on water availability and that the state knows about, that USGS knows about, that whoever knows about that, they can help us do a plan.
So I think it looks like, we're primarily looking at them to do tasks 2.1 and 2.2. That seems to be the main focus, the way this is written. And then when you look at the tasks that are A through O, you have to look at some of these that would be something that you would do short term, and some of them that are assuming that we have to do something to provide an alternate source of water. It may come out that from the first two components, we may not need to find an alternate source of water for a longer period of time.
Right. Well, maybe in the spirit of the to extent possible language, the task 2.3 is in fact the framework for having that dialogue with them in a pre-bid conference about here's what we would like to understand what you can do and why you would defer doing other things.
Because I think as a minimum, we want 2.1 and 2.2 to be completed, right?
Yeah, I would think so. To the extent
And
they
then
can do it with the available
that would
data.
give us a baseline to go from. And then the other things would be, certain things would be great to have, but we may not be able to do it all in this phase.
Yeah, 2.3 says to the extent possible, task 2.2 shall address these topics. So my
And then
sense
what
is
does task 2.4 say?
all right, task what?
2.4.
That's the one that says everything else, right? Identify any additional information to be collected and work to be completed that are outside the scope of tasks 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3.
So unless you want to go back to that line that you had talked about, wanted to update.
Where are we heading now? Which one?
Take it. I mean, we kind of we sort of circled back onto the other ones, but I think there was a line in there that you put in there was about. I think it's later on. It's part of the not the submission, the requirements. Okay, respond. Was this right there? We especially need cost estimates.
But my cost
okay.
estimate?
The cost estimate is about subtasks, and this will be useful in helping us guide what weight and emphasis we want in the first phase.
Now, this is the thing I think Brian was getting at. This is something we might want to try to draw them out. Actually, anybody who shows up for the pre-bid conference, right?
Cost estimates.
I mean, you see, you're sort of saying it's unfair to ask them to give estimates, but yet we want them to tell us their fees for doing each piece of work. So they have to have some idea what a cost would be to set a fee, wouldn't they?
Well, I was just thinking about that last sentence in there. This will be helpful. This will be useful in helping guide us with maybe we say additional phases of the work and just sort of.
Yeah, that's only there for us to talk about. I'm not saying we put that language in the actual RFP, but that's just for us to talk about.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I thought you wanted that.
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, isn't a consultant going to just say, this is prohibitively expensive, rather than provide a cost estimate?
Well, but you've already asked them to provide fees for every piece, right? So how's that different?
Well, but I'm still questioning that. I mean, you still want to do that?
Well, I don't know. That was in your RFP. So are you having second thoughts about that? Is that not a reasonable way to go?
Or was that added to the RFP?
I didn't add it.
I don't recall putting that in there. I mean, I think all the submission requirements were.
You mean
added
this
to the
item
RFP
12
after we were
respondents
done with it.
fee? This item 12 respondents fees for providing the work, you're saying that you're not sure where that came from?
I don't think it came from the committee.
Well, let me just look at the.
I'd be okay with leaving it as it is. Provide a breakout for the estimated, fees and expenses. And if they don't want to do it, then if we don't get anybody, we don't get sufficient people to kind of respond to this, then we go back and understand it better and update it accordingly. But this is part of the learning process, I think.
Yeah, Brian, I'm looking at version 10, which was the one before. What part of the version 11 does that language appear? Where is it exactly? About the fees.
We didn't have any submission requirements in the last version we did.
Oh, okay. That was version 10, right?
I've got 9 in front of me.
No, I got version 10 up. I think that's the last one before 11. Dated 11/29.
Well, version 9 didn't have any.
Well, I know
requirements,
we did version 10 because nobody else has touched this except us.
and we didn't add any submission requirements, as far as I know.
That's not in version 10. Oh yeah, it is. It just says submission requirements include number of copies of the proposal, but no detail on selection process.
Right. So either Rajan or council added that.
So number 12 is a fair point, because when they're going to respond back and say, well, this is how much it's going to cost you for me to do this.
Okay.
John is saying, or whomever is saying, well, don't forget to include subcontractors of fees and expenses. Because
Yeah.
I know about that too, besides what your salary is going to be, so I think it seems like it seems like a standard, RFP line,
Yeah, could be. I apologize. I assumed that came from the subcommittee with only the boilerplate added. So this whole thing about respondents' fees is news to Brian.
Yeah, and I think, Dave, that for a regular project that wasn't being done in phases, this would all be fine. But doing this in phases adds a lot of complications, and I'm not sure Rajan or council really has thought that through.
Well, again, what have we told them about phasing, though?
Yeah, but if you look
Yeah,
at,
but I'm not sure they're really aware of the subtleties. I mean, we've tried to dance around it by saying do as many of those items A through O as you can, but we know you can't do all of them. I don't think who's reviewed this has really thought about what that means.
Well,
And I admit it's a really awkward way to do an RFP. It's a horrible way to do an RFP
why are we doing it that way then?
because we only have $50,000.
Right, I was just gonna say, if
Well,
you add up all the items that we're asking for, it's way beyond 50,000.
Yeah, so to be dumb about it, we're saying there's all the things we'd like to do. What can we do for 50K and to do the most important things first?
Yeah, and one of the reasons for giving them our wish list is so that they can know where subsequent phases are going to go.
Well, maybe we need to be more clear about that. I mean,
Well, we talked that to death at one of our meetings, and we came up with the language we came up with.
well, I think given this conversation, it didn't make it. It's not, at least not being obvious to me that we're saying that this long list here is things you should think about or be aware of that we might be in issuing future RFPs on to do this kind of work. That's sort of the message you're trying to communicate, isn't it? And really only focus on task 2.1 and 2.2 for the present.
I'm not sure
Alec,
we can work this out tonight.
no, we might not be able to.
But I mean, Les, if you look at the first sentence under task 2.3,
Yeah,
it says to the extent possible, okay?
Yeah.
2.2 shall address the A through O, okay? Where this is not possible, the consultant shall address them under task 2.4, which is basically saying that these are tasks that would be completed outside the scope of 2.1 and 2.2. Maybe that's what we should say.
Yeah, but I think Alex's point is that we want to prevent them with a carrot that we have big plans and these are the kind of things we want to do over time. We know we can't do it all with the first one, but in forming your response, consider that these are the things we're going to be wanting to do later. So that they don't see this as just a $50,000 chunk of work. They see it as the first chunk of a big piece of work is 50,000.
But do you see how odd this is for an RFP language? Do you see how difficult it is for a consultant to look at this and say, this is what they want, and here's how we're going to do it?
Well, were you wanting Alec to help rationalize that or Rajan or?
Well, if you go back to the beginning under scope of work for 2.0, scope of work for this first phase of the proposal consists of the following. We want to say 2 tasks instead of 3, which is basically 2.1 and 2.2, and then to the extent possible. So the focus is really on the first 2, which is probably realistic for $50,000. And then anything else extra that you can do, tell us what you can do.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Right? So if we just make that change in the beginning, instead of consisting the following 3 tasks, it really consists of the following 2 tasks. And then to the extent possible, what you can do here.
Yeah, but in responding to tasks, in responding to 2.1 and 2.2, I would certainly hope they would be thinking about touching on these topics that we're concerned about that are listed in A through O.
Right.
I mean, Alex seems to be wanting to set this up so that it's worded correctly under procurement law, that additional work can be done through issuance of RFPs without going through all the upfront, boilerplate work over and over again.
Right, and that's why we're following the rules under a contract that's $100,000 or above.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That doesn't change what you're talking about now. That's concern about whether it's clear enough here. Right. Maybe that is a good way to do it. Just say it's 2 tasks.
I mean, you don't have to spend all the money. You know, if they can do it less than that, that's great. And then tell us what they can do with the remainder. I think that we're in a situation less than $50,000 is $50,000, and that's it.
Yeah.
We got to get the basics. We have to answer the basic questions for all that information to be updated from the CDM study.
I mean, the real critical thing is under task 2.2, whether or not the town can continue to rely on private walls and wastewater disposal systems indefinitely based on the information available.
Yeah.
If it's unlikely, provide recommendations. I mean, that is the crux of what we want, I think, for phase 1.
But if, as Brian says, that can be readily answered and there's money left over, we would like to get that too.
Right. But we can do that, right?
Well, that's covered in the to the extent possible, right?
Yeah.
It is, but it's, boy, I think you got to dig pretty deep into this to get it.
Well, then we should not
And
make it
that's
that
why I
hard.
say this is not typical RFP language.
Well, what do you want to do about doing a surgery here?
I think everybody make their suggestions and we take it up at our next meeting.
Oh, that's going to add a lot of time to getting this thing done.
Yeah, but we can't do it tonight.
So this has been reviewed by Alec, right?
Yeah,
don't
but as
think so.
Brian just pointed out, and I did not realize, some of this language that's troubling him got added by council and or Alec, and I wasn't aware of that until I looked at version 10.
I don't believe Alec has given any input to this.
It might just be from the attorney, our procurement
Oh.
guy.
Okay. So there wasn't a direct request to Alec for doing this.
You have to ask Brian and Janet about that, and Stephen, but that's what Brian is saying. No, they didn't request any of this. What came out in this, what you see in version 10 is on the screen now. That's it. It had very little under those sections, which I did not appreciate until I just looked at this. So a lot of stuff got added in making version 11.
Version 10 isn't on the screen right now.
Well, I can put it back. Did it go away? Is it back now? Are you seeing it?
I'm seeing 11.
Oh, how do I have it? Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Wait a minute. New share. How do I do that?
I think you have to stop sharing and then start sharing and then select a new one.
Yeah, you can't just toggle back and forth between
I don't know.
documents.
Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, I see it. Yep.
This is version 10. So you can see. Include number of copies of the proposal, of the fee proposal, blah blah blah, blah. List of references.
Okay.
So everything above that's pretty much the same. The long list of tasks and this detailed task list is in version 10, including the infamous item O about outreach.
Yeah, it doesn't appear that anybody touched that. Like, because we weren't asking them to.
I think the thing that sort of is a little bit confusing, and where the confusion is that task 2.24 sort of makes a circularity referring back to other things and allow you to expand the work to the extent possible, blah, blah. Maybe it needs to just be really simplified without cutting off the possibility that there might be enough money to do some of these things on the laundry list and within phase 1. It'd be stupid not to get it if we can buy it.
Well, we beat this thing to death at a previous meeting,
Okay, but
and
that's
this is what we came up with.
right, but what came back from Rajon and Alec is different. Because I guess we're all seeing that for the first time,
Yeah, but
really.
they didn't change the tasks.
No,
We're
they
the
didn't.
ones were
No, well, we just now realizing we're not happy with it. Or are we, in spite of ourselves?
I think everybody should take this home and read it carefully and come back at our next meeting with some concrete ideas on what needs to change. I don't want to go through what we went through at our last meeting where we just, would we go to 10:30, 11 at night?
There needs to be a key author. To assemble a document to review. Otherwise, it's not going to converge. And I thought we had kind of had that working up to this version 11.
Well, I thought we did too, because we spent a lot of time working out tasks 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. We spent a lot of time on the language for that. And now
I know we did, but now you're now
saying we're not happy with it.
Yeah, but are we just agonizing over something that doesn't really matter, or is it really flawed in some way?
I think it's clear. I think it's stated clearly, but you got to dig for it. And that's not what consultants are used to seeing in an RFP.
What would you recommend to help them with that? How should it be structured differently?
Maybe the answer is, again, the pre-bid conference.
Well, maybe that's a possibility.
You know, maybe we need consultants to tell us that something's unclear. Maybe I'm imagining it.
Well, that's not an unreasonable plan. Say, look, these are the big things we want to do. Here are all the things that are on our radar screen. They want to address over time, as we can afford to do it. Help us figure out how to structure an RFP that we'll be happy to try to respond to,
What if you take under scope of work, you just have task 2.1 and 2.2. And instead of saying task 2.3, you make that a new paragraph that says, to the extent possible, task 2.2 shall address topics A through O. Okay, so that way, as a consultant, you're looking at the primary scope of work are the first two items. And then anything extra I can do, I will identify.
John, I have a feeling that that's how it was worded originally. I can't be certain of that, but I have a feeling.
I agree.
It says what it says now because we weren't comfortable with that saying that.
Yeah,
I think it was.
I think if you take out the additional tasks, so you're letting the consultants know, look, the main thing we want are items 1 and 2. If you can do something extra, here's the things that we would like you to consider. Let us know which ones you think you might be able to do in addition. And then instead of task 2.4, identify additional information to be completed outside the scopes of task 2.1 and 2.2. And that might make it easier for a consultant to understand where they focus and then what are the other things that they might be able to bring to the table.
I think that's how we worded it before.
I think it was, it's just sounding like deja vu.
I mean, that's just my thought, but I'm just thinking about a way to move it forward in getting what we want.
Well, I think I'm recalling, I think the trouble, if it was trouble, started when we had this thing which is now called task 2.3. to the extent possible, task 2.2 shall address this long list of things. Well, how are you going to get closure on that? And I think the mistake was making that list appear to be a task as opposed to context for thinking about 2.1 and 2.2. You know what I mean?
Right, that's why I'm saying take the task 2.3 out of it.
Yeah, as you know, as a header or as a
Right, right.
Informing a response, the respondent should try to address the items listed in A through O below. And then forget about, don't say whether it's not. You can consider anything. Consider all this stuff in formulating a response to 2.1 and 2.2. And you could still invite them to consider other things, but gee, this is a long list here, you know. But the main thing is, and don't say objective of the plan to achieve the purpose and objectives of task 2.1 and 2.2. That's what they're asking for. I think that'd be fairly easy.
What do you do with 2.4?
Get rid of it. What good does it do at this point? If after all this, there's still more things you want to do, well, gee, yeah. I don't know. It's being a little silly here, but I mean, or just put another OLMNOP other question mark.
How about if I take a stab at a revised document for our next meeting, based on what we've said here?
I think it'd be great. I think that's actually would be fairly simple now that I think about it. I think, yeah, get rid of that header task 2.0, 2.4, and leave a slot for additional topics to be addressed as may be suggested by the consultant. This is our list, right? All to be considered in providing a response to task 2.2 and 2.1. Task 2.3 goes away. It just becomes a new section called items for consideration and responding, or something like that.
You don't actually need to do anything there. You just have it as a
It
second
just
paragraph.
becomes part of 2.2.
Yeah,
Yes, it could just be, although, yeah, just don't make it apply just to 2.2. It should applies to everything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and the problem is that saying to the extent possible implies you're putting a money limit on what they're allowed to respond. We actually want them to be open-ended in thinking about what they want to respond to, but acknowledging that there's more here than we can afford to do. But we want them to consider these topics when they give us their response, including things you might think of, Mr. Consultant. Then I think it's
And we're really looking for a consultant that can address all of those items
right
eventually.
Right. And if somebody has no idea what to do, then they're not right for us.
And we want to know that now rather than later.
Right. Now I'm currently paging through version 10, but that's okay because we know what we're going to do here.
Yeah. While we're looking at that, Les, in the references section,
Yeah.
I can easily summarize what's going to be updated there.
Yeah, well, when it comes to that part, I just go with what's in version 11 because I've already tweaked that a little bit. Where's
I
version
think
11?
version 11 says the same thing.
Well, not exactly. By the way, there's some strange things with a list here where it seem to be carrying over from some previous edits. I'm not sure where that comes from. Like this strange pagination number. I guess that came from council. Brian had a remark, we need to add to the webpage. Well, that's already up there now. His remark about Wolf Swamp is still true. We don't know whether we're going to leave it in or take it out. I made the comment here, and I believe it's true, that this is in the webpage and to the extent that it's in the 2008 CDM report. That is the summary of the 2.5
Oh, that's
inch.
right, yes.
So that would stay, and the rest is okay.
So what we need to add to the web page is the picnic trust report.
Yeah. If you think it, I mean, there's so many other little, as you think that's an important report to include there?
Yeah,
the
it's
mo-
the, I mean, it's the only report we have for bedrock testing.
Okay. But you've got that, right? It's in a hard copy box at the library, but you have a soft copy.
That's what, yeah, I sent it to you this afternoon.
Yeah, so I'll have Becky put that on the page.
And the Wolf Swamp report, I have no idea how we're ever going to find that.
It's missing in action. So I got to put up the picnic trust report. All right.
Yeah, it's actually called the Steel Farm report,
Steel Farm. Okay.
even though the well was on the picnic trust parcel.
Yeah. Okay.
So going forward here, Les, you and Brian can you guys work together to sort of update to the next version and bring that back to the next meeting? I mean,
Yeah,
there's
well-
changes flying around for us to be, taking.
Yeah, we'll make this a final version for approval for our next meeting.
Okay. And I agree with the conversation about getting rid of 2.4 and making that list part of
Yeah.
2.2 as John suggested.
This is a bit of deja vu. I know we talked about this before.
I
All
think
right, well-
John suggested 2.3 and 2.4.
Okay. Okay, so we have an action where Brian and Les will make a final document for review at our next meeting. I guess Brian will have to make sure that we're sensitive to any required language that might have been inserted by council, which could be the case.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that was fun.
You know how to tell a gang a good time. Let's
All right. So everybody,
Did we lose anybody? Is Maria still here? Is Cassie still?
Cassie's here, Maria's here, John
John,
seems to be here.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let me get rid of this. And the next thing on the list was a review of funding source for the RFP. We could do this now. Does anybody want to see that detail, or would you rather go through the other things? I mean, there was a kerfuffle. Are you seeing this summary of WRC articles now?
No, we're still looking at the version
Oh.
10.
Okay, I gotta go back and I don't know why I still don't know how to use this thing right. New share. Now you're seeing a thing called summary?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So when we decided to combine Article 17 and 18 from the 2019 ATM to fund this work, totaling $30,000, that was a fine plan. And we did all the work. We put an article to town meeting and they approved it. Later, it was pointed out that an earlier town meeting had actually closed out the article from the Article 17 from ATM 19. So the $15,000 disappeared. I'm chagrined about that because I didn't remember it, and a lot of other people didn't remember it because nobody stopped me. Nobody pointed it out. Mike wasn't in town at that time, so he didn't know. So it happened. But there is plenty of money to do everything we need to do because of other articles being passed. This is just a list of them all, which I don't want to, take too much time going through the list. I can just send this to everybody. And so the bottom line is to make up the 15K, there's a couple of possibilities, which is to spend some portion of an article that was approved for the removal of the Harvard Sportsman's Club wells, which has got more money in it than is probably needed. And at any rate, there was a larger article that was approved at ATM in 2023, this last May, to fund $50,000 for water line consultants related to the extension of the line from Littleton that covers a number of things. So between those two things, I think we can, and Mike agrees, we can easily find $15,000 to make it up. So I'm not worried about that. So it's available and we can do it. So we don't need to be asking town meeting for money before, I would say before we're finished with the work that will be launched by this RFP. Any questions on that? I'm going to send this spreadsheet around to you all so you can have a look at it.
Good.
Master plan updates. One of the other pieces of mail that we got. Now, this has to be shared as well, right? Because I didn't share it yet. New share.
I can screen share the update.
Oh, okay. I have it too, Brian, if you don't have it. Why don't you want to go ahead and do that?
Yeah. You have to make me
Oh, I
co-host.
need to give you permission or privileges. Let's
You have
see.
to stop sharing.
I want to make Brian a co-host, and do I need to stop sharing?
Yeah, only one can share at a time.
All right, let me get rid of that. I'll stop sharing. Okay, Brian, you should be able to share now.
All right, we're looking at a Zoom.
Yeah, I know. I got to how's this? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So Alec had sent around a PDF, an editable PDF form, which I tried to fill out, and it was a little hard to use because it only allowed you to put in one line. And the more you type, the smaller the letters got. So I created this Word document. So there's an executive summary saying that we've made substantial progress on most of the actions we're responsible for. And there's some details. One of the things is we decided we needed outside experts, and that led to the RFP. So these are discussed below. So this first item that we have responsibility for is plan for long-term water supply. This is an ongoing critical action, so we're not really late on it. We've made substantial progress. We've got the RFP. I said we expect to issue this in the first half of 2024, and that we would need additional funds to complete it. And we've also met with the Littleton Water Department, the town of Stowe, and the Acton Water District to talk about possible regional solutions. The meeting with Acton and Littleton happened this morning, and we can provide an update on that later. The next item is review watershed and aquifer protection zoning to protect zone twos and existing and potential well sites in Boxborough and neighboring towns. One of the things that this involves is where the zone 2 for Acton and Littleton extends into Boxborough, towns like that want to see other towns protect their zone 2 through their zoning laws. Acton has done this with towns around them. I'm not sure what Littleton has done, but they didn't bring this up at our meeting this morning, so we don't really know what they think about that. But I have some information.
How do they do that? How do they do that with the other town? How do they come to some agreement that a neighboring town is going to do something to protect a neighboring town's water source?
I don't know exactly how it works. I don't know if they approach a town and say your zoning doesn't protect our zone 2. I don't know how that works. But I have a map of the Aquifer Protection District in the zone 2.
Right. Well, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but
Yeah,
I'll just venture a guess that there is nothing under law that allows one town to control another town's zoning.
Well, we didn't do it by zoning. What we did is
no, that's not what that's not what
we passed the bylaw for the Board of Health.
Yeah.
It said that we would enhance to the extent possible under DEP regulation the requirements for protection of zone 2s and other areas around wells that are public water supplies. And that's in effect now. That was done by the Board of Health.
Right, but so if you're talking about protecting a zone 2 of a neighboring town, I'm not sure how you enforce that.
Well, it's in the town of Boxborough. It's not in Acton. Acton's on their own. What we're saying is the zone 2 by state requirements of the Water Resource Commission has established zone 2s in Boxborough that are for wells in Acton and Littleton.
Right. But what you're saying is that our Board of Health can then regulate the use of that land that protects a neighboring town zone 2.
Yes. It's required. Matter of fact, it's one of the things DEP wants you to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what the legal ramifications are for that.
when I show you the map,
declared zone 2. It's not fictitious. These are real zone 2s.
Well, I know that. My question is, how do you enforce?
Well, you're supposed to review the plans of all the people that want to alter land in those zone 2.
Some of this will become clearer when I show you the map.
Yep.
No, I know what the map's going to show. My point's going to stand, I think. So, in other words, is there anything in the world of DEP that says you can't put that well too close to the town boundary because the zone 2 for that's going to intrude, and there's no way to guarantee that neighboring town's going to do what it should do?
No, there's nothing.
So I think it's just an open circuit in law.
No,
myself.
It's not DEP alone. It's also the Water Resource Commission that establishes what they the water to, and it crosses the town line.
Okay, but my point is that you think it's an incomplete thought and legally about how you would actually enforce any of this stuff without having a regional entity that actually owns it all, which is kind of where it seems to be heading at this point. Yeah.
Well, it might be just voluntary cooperation. I wish Janet was here to talk more about the Aquifer Protection District, because there were other issues with the Aquifer Protection District that the planning board thinks needs to be addressed. And I don't recall exactly what those were. So anyway, I said there was limited progress on this. The time frame was to complete this by 2019, and that was not realistic. And I think what my recommendation would be to say that, or the committee's, I would suggest that the committee recommend that the 3 boards that have lead responsibility for this revise the time frame and clarify exactly what this action requires. and determine how to complete it. And then under comments, I said that we've mapped the Aquifer Protection District, overlaid that over the Zone 2s, and they generally coincide, and it may not be necessary to revise the zoning bylaw to protect those Zone 2s. However, we might need to enforce the bylaw. And I'll get to that later. As far as using this to address potential well sites in Boxborough, that's something I think that's part of what the planning board thought might need to be expanded on or revised. I'm not sure.
What,
And
for
then
for the Aquifer Protection District, you mean?
yeah,
I thought their biggest concern was that map that's now in a GIS layer is based upon the very old data that was not even scanned. It was entered in a crude grid and digitized, but it needs to be brought to modern GIS standards, and that's a piece of work that no one's funded as far as I know.
yeah, the planning board said, or Janice said the planning board might be willing to fund that.
Well, are they going
But
to
again-
take that up as a planning board action? Do you know?
I don't know. And finally, the watershed protection, the watershed zoning does not need to be addressed because the Wetlands and Watershed Protection District was deleted from the bylaw in 2016. So that's this part right here that doesn't need to be addressed. We're focusing solely on the Aquifer Protection District.
There's no such thing as a watershed zone anymore, right? That's what you're saying?
Right.
Is that what you're saying, Brian?
Yep. Town meeting deleted it in 2016.
Yeah.
And so this final item that we have responsibility for is identify priority areas for receiving public water supply.
That's going to be the outcome of the study, right?
Well, we've already identified one area.
Right.
That's the one that Littleton is
Yep.
designing a water line extension for. And yes, we would look at the rest of the town as part of the upcoming study. And that's pretty much what the comments section says.
Great.
And time frame, this was supposed to be done by 2023. It didn't happen, but we're continuing to work on it. And then finally, Alec asked it for suggested items or changes in the next master plan. And what I said is that the long-term planning that we're doing under the first task will probably be carried over into the next master plan. And our study will focus on that and refine the timelines further. And to some extent, that may be true for the other two tasks as well.
And that is it's sort of 6 years away, right? The next master plan.
Yes.
They'll be starting to work on it before then, but that's sort of the idea.
Yeah, Alec at one point said they wanted to start working on it in 2026, do most of the work in 2029, I think.
Yeah. Right.
Something like that. There was one thing that this language right here about funding, I don't know if this is quite correct right here. They said funding for the first phase is available for prior town meeting appropriations amended as necessary in 2023. Les, is that accurate?
You could just say prior town meeting appropriations. You can include the amended, but I don't know if it adds anything.
Well, we didn't, strictly speaking, we didn't amend anything. We kind of repurposed
Well,
some old amendments, right?
articles were amended. Town meeting approved amended language that broadened the scope of applicability, merged the funding sources for two into one. So yeah, I mean it's it's all in a big spreadsheet. I would just leave it the way it is. I would just say amended
Okay.
into.
I
I
mean,
would say
the reason for
amended.
mentioning 2023 is that this is an update of the master plan. So I wanted to sort of stress what we did in 2023.
Yeah, what's amended here is the funding you're
Okay.
talking about, right? I would just say amend. I would just say amended in
Yeah.
2023. Take out the ads necessary. Good. Well, Brian has been tracking the details on this. Oh, and I tried using Alex online form and ran into a world of hurt with Norton Antivirus not liking active scripts in it and various other things I don't want to bore people with, but it was not easy to use. And I think, Brian, you're proposing that if we like this language, that you will work with Alex to get it into a format that he can digest with his intake form. Which is what we did last time.
I would just send this to him and say, like,
yeah, I mean, it's, I'm not going to try to struggle with that
I was
form.
asked if we couldn't work with your form.
Yeah, it's got password protection,
Yeah.
so it needs work.
So, so
The
Brian,
spreadsheet that he created was
just to complete your edit you just put in there, it says amended as in 2023. So you can get rid of the as. My understanding from talking to a planner was that he was looking for people to provide a status as well as any updates, anything that was, that needs to be changed. So for example, you just discussed the watershed is no longer there. I would think he would want to know that action needs to be updated to say review the aquifer protection zoning is what the update was, and I think the Water Resources Committee is responsible, has primary responsibility. So we would look to set a date. What we could do this by reasonably, and maybe it's because we've got 2 other committees to work with. Maybe it's not reasonable in a year. Maybe you got to push it out to 2 years, but I think that's what he's looking for.
Well, but on that particular point, Brian has noted that town meeting already changed the zoning and eliminated that district. It doesn't exist anymore. There's no such thing as a watershed district. So I think Brian's just saying make the language consistent in terms of this progress tracking, which makes sense.
Right, because my sense was
yeah, I'm a little curious.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dave.
No, you're gonna say you're a little what?
I'm a little careful about suggesting changes to the master plan because, for one thing, when Adam DeShano was the town planner who oversaw this master plan, he at one point said that you don't make changes to the master plan. It's been approved by the planning board and the board of selectmen, and that's it. You don't go amending it.
Okay.
What you do is you make notes for how you want to do it differently the next time. So I don't really want to get into changes that we think ought to be made. What I did say was that I think the 3 boards need to get together and figure out how to deal with this action.
Well, which action are you talking about
3
now?
boards have lead responsibility.
Well, but your point was there is no such thing as a. Your point was, I thought, that there is no such thing as a watershed district. Town meeting eliminated it. Town meeting can do that.
Right.
And that, therefore, a reference to it in the master plan doesn't make it. Pardon? So it doesn't make any sense.
But to Dave's point about the schedule for getting this done, I think we need to sit down with the planning board and the Board of Health and figure out how we're going to do it.
Yeah, it gets
Well,
some
there's-
agreement. I think you're right,
There's
Brian.
there's two things. One is there is no watershed protection district, but if we're going to do something jointly, yeah, you got to think about what the date is going to be to review the zoning for the aquifer protection district, which now presumably consumes or subsumes the old watershed district, which no longer exists.
But
The
my
master-
understanding, Les,
Well, no, not
my understanding from conversations with the planner was that these were all being reviewed to be updated, right? And he said there were some things that were in there that maybe never got done and don't need to get done at this point. So from my conversation, Alec was looking to update that plan, and that's very different from what Brian just described. That the previous planner said that you don't touch it. Whether it's one way or the other, what I'm saying is, if you hand this back, it may not be exactly what Alec's looking for. So you need to have a conversation about what you're handing back to be sure that we're clear on what he wants.
I think the biggest thing that needs to be updated, Dave, is this deadline of 2019. That needs to be changed. And despite what I said, the select board and the planning board have made amendments to the master plan. And I think that's what Alec was talking about. So this date here, this does need to be updated. And then, like I said, I think the three boards need to figure out how we're going to handle this. And in particular, the planning board had some ideas about what they thought needed to be done for the Aquifer Protection District.
My only point is that, the master plan is the master plan, and it has an implementation plan with dates and actions and all that jazz, and those things evolve over time. It always has. In fact, when John and I did this in 2000, when did we do it? 2010? No, can't be that long ago. When were we doing this?
Plus, it was 2015.
It was
15.
approved in 2016, January 2016.
We said we consciously wanted it to be a living document so that it could evolve over time. Not so much the core master plan, unless it was really important to change, but update progress reports frequently. That's what this. Alex looking for that here. Just progress report.
Yeah. So the way the master plan was developed is that there were certain action items that had a short term, another set of action items that had a medium term, and others that had a longer term.
Right.
And the way it was done was that as we went through the short-term items, if they were completed, that was fine. If they were not completed, what's the reason? And it could be that they were no longer applicable, or it was going to take longer to get done. At which point it would be moved to another date, which I think is what Brian is pointing out here, that we need to agree that there's a different date here because the date that's there clearly has passed. But the whole idea is, if there are items in there that are no longer applicable, then the boards that are responsible need to get together and agree that they no longer are applicable, or how they could be changed, or when they can be done. It actually can be a living document that can continue.
Right.
But that's for the implementation items.
Right.
The overriding items that are in there of what's viewed as important is something that would require another review at I think it's coming up in about 6 years that we have to do this again.
Right. And the planning board owns the master plan, right?
That's right.
But these implementation details,
the
they
planning
should
board or
evolve.
the planning board and the select board.
What? We've never had a rule.
Is it the planning board or the planning board and the select board that owns it?
It's the planning board and the select board. The planning board the planning board is responsible for updating the master plan. It's presented to the select board for acceptance, and then final acceptance or review, I think, at town meeting.
Well, we've never actually done that at town meeting, as I recall, at least not the last cycle.
I think it just gets approved at the select board level.
Right. But things like, oh, this action plan references something that doesn't exist, you can fix that and make a note why. My concern is as you change and evolve these progress reports, how do you track what actually changed when you go back and look 5 years later? What did we change and when did we change it and why? I don't think that detail is being captured unless Alec is capturing it in some kind of hypertext document somewhere. It's very difficult to track that. It's like a big project.
I think his spreadsheet tried to do that, but like you and I found out that spreadsheet in it, it was hard to read because it was hard to scroll through it. You couldn't use the search function on it. And if you wanted to save it into a version that was more friendly, it was password protected. So
no, it's not right. It's not ready for us to work with, frankly. So
right.
I haven't had a chance to talk to Alec about that, and somebody else may talk to him sooner rather than I do. But he needs to know that thing needs to be improved for user friendliness.
Well, I think that may become apparent to him if I submit this to him. Shall I do that?
What are we going to do about the action that says review watershed? Do you want to make a note that needs to be changed in somewhere in the master plan?
I wouldn't bother with it. It doesn't exist.
So what's the action?
We deal with the Aquifer Protection District.
Right.
And it's silly to eliminate something and not leave a footnote as to what happened.
Well, it says right here, the watershed zoning does not need to be addressed because that district was deleted.
All right.
It's right here.
This is like software revision tracking, that can get very complicated.
That's right.
Well, Brian, thanks for wrestling with this. I'm happy to have you find some way to get this content into Alex's hands so that it can be incorporated into, because he's rolling up everything into one update document to be reviewed. I had the impression from his mail originally that although this committee did submit an update back in April, wasn't it? That many other boards had not, so he was trying to play catch up. But as long as they're playing catch up, I guess we catch it up to the current date as opposed to last March.
Yeah, strictly speaking, I think we could have skated by with what we submitted in March. But I felt that so much had changed since then. We had so much to report that we ought to at least get the credit for it.
Yep.
Maybe it's a conversation for select board and the planning board. Who's actually paying attention to this rolling updates and so forth? Is they going to sit down and review all this at some point at a definite date, Dave? Do you know?
He did a presentation I want to say maybe it's a couple months back at this point, very, very high level about about what his intentions were. And
Yeah.
he didn't have, I don't recall there being specific dates
Yeah.
at this point. So what I do know is that, he's looking for the updates, and these updates, I believe, did not happen while Carter was the interim.
Yeah.
And so he's doing some catch up here, and
Yeah.
and so he'll get this, he'll put this together, and he'll present it. He'll work with the different committees and get these. And again, to John's earlier point, it's really about, or maybe it was yours, Les, it's the action items and the strategies and the things that were listed in the second document that they really need to be addressed. So
Right.
it'll happen, I believe, in the months ahead.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he wanted to get these updates from the boards by January 15th. So I assume he's got some date in mind where he's going to present it to the select board.
Well, I would recommend, if folks are in agreement, that we bless and authorize this document that Brian has put together and for him to submit to Alec as our report or update from the Water Resource Committee, and copy Jenna on that so she can take it directly to the planning board as well.
Mhm.
And ask him if he needs any further help from us, but I think we can check that box by doing this.
Yep.
Is everybody in agreement with that? Any objections?
Yeah, great work.
Yeah, Alec will come back to Brian if he has questions.
All right, good. All right. All right, Brian. Well, thanks so much for doing that. The
Thank
next
you.
item on our
Okay.
revised, sorry?
No, I wanted to show the zoning map that is related to this.
Oh,
So I'm going to do another screen share. Can you see this?
no, nothing
Not
yet.
yet.
Still nothing?
Nope.
You're still a co-host, so you should be able to share. It's doing something now. It's thinking.
That's
There it
dangerous.
is.
Yep, there it is.
Okay. What I did was I took the Aquifer Protection District, which is the blue and the yellow, and I overlaid the zone 2s from Acton, which is in red, and Littleton, which is in red here. And I was kind of amazed that they kind of line up pretty well together. So these zone 2s are covered by our Aquifer Protection District. And then this is just a map of where I got the zone 2s from.
Yeah.
Littleton is here, Acton's there. This is a map of the aquifers. And I don't think, with the zone 2s overlaid on them, and this is quite a bit different from what's mapped in our Aquifer Protection District. This is a little closer. I don't know if that's something maybe we want to look at in our study. Why are those so different?
Well, where does that?
And then I got. I'm sorry.
Where's
What?
that data? Where's that data come from?
I don't remember where that came from. I don't have the source listed on it. So then I looked at in the zoning bylaw, I poked around in there. And the first thing I found was this aquifer is defined as having transmissivity of greater than 5,000 gallons per day per foot. And that translates to 668 feet squared per day. The typical bedrock aquifer is 0.9 to 150 feet squared per day. And I found this interesting because it suggests that under our zoning bylaw, our bedrock aquifers do not meet the definition of an aquifer. Then there's a definition for recharge area, recharge rate. And then we get into the Aquifer Protection District. This was established in 1984. And this is the table of uses. So like I was saying, our Aquifer Protection District agrees pretty closely with the Zone 2s of Littleton and Acton. But I think if we were to get the benefit of that, one of the things our bylaw prohibits is the use of sodium salts except on public highways. And so this would be an example of something I think that we're not enforcing. And so Acton's Zone 2 is affected by this. In particular, some condominiums on Liberty Square Road and Mass Ave, which use salt on their parking lots, are affecting Acton Zone 2.
And they're not in our Aquifer Protection District.
Yes, they are.
Well, they are. So,
Because
but
remember, I said the Aquifer Protection District and the Zone 2s coincide fairly closely.
yeah, but so are the protections under our Aquifer Protection District the same as that would be obtained for a Zone 2 under CMR?
Well, I don't know. I think what people look to do is to have the zoning protect the Zone 2.
Well, that's what
And
my,
so the question comes up, should we be enforcing this within the Zone 2? Now, here's my thoughts on this. I live in a condominium that gets its water also from within Acton Zone 2. And I don't drink the water because of the sodium levels. And I would have no problem at all if the town were to tell these condominiums that they can't use sodium salts anymore for de-icing. So I don't know if we want to go there. As far as the master plan goes, like I said, I don't think we need to change our zoning in order to protect the Zone 2. We've already got aquifer protection zoning, which lines up with the Zone 2. But I think if anything's missing, we're not enforcing the zone.
No, I want to be clear what you're saying. They lines up in terms of geometrical overlay. They cover the same area. Do they overlay as well as in the amount and level of protection that they both confer? That is, certain things are prohibited under DEP regulations in a Zone 2. Are they in a line with what's allowed and not allowed under our zoning for Aquifer Protection District?
I'd have to go look at what DEP actually says about Zone 2s. Do you know, Brian?
There's a long list of things that they prohibit. And it's fairly extensive, and it goes far beyond zoning.
Is it actually prohibited?
Yes, there's certain things that they will not allow you to do in the Zone 2s. As far as waste disposal and some other stuff. You've got to read all the details on it.
Okay.
Well, related, yeah. Well, it was asserted by someone in a meeting who was talking about a property on Mass Avenue that, for example, contrary to what many people think, is the claim was you can put a septic system in a Zone 2 as long as it's not too large a size in terms of volume of effluent and the level of contaminants in the effluent. So it's something that can be managed, apparently. And I don't know what the details are.
It depends on where it is in the Zone 2.
Yeah.
What DEP determines.
Yeah. But back to Brian's question. So if our Aquifer Protection District regulations, if you will, or what's under zoning are consistent with the kind of protection that the DEP's Zone 2 regulations are giving, then what you're saying is, well, maybe what we should do is find a way to seek, I won't use the word enforce, but seek compliance with the Aquifer Protection District zoning requirements or regulations, which I guess, as far as I know, are not being enforced by any town body that I'm aware of.
Nope.
Especially after the fact, right? Like, for example, the matter of salt on parking lots and so forth.
Correct.
Now, the town has stopped using sodium salt on its roads, isn't it?
Brian, you're breaking up so badly, I can't. Can you guys hear him?
No, it's all garbled.
Yeah, I think it may be because you're trying to screen share it
Oh,
with the
dear.
video. Huh?
I will stop screen sharing because
Yeah. Audio is much better. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, can you say that
okay.
again?
The town no longer uses sodium salt on its roads. Is that correct?
No.
Yep.
We put down a eutectic mixture of magnesium chloride and sodium chloride.
So there's some sodium chloride being
As
used.
far as I know,
Yep.
Okay.
we
Yeah.
salt
So
the
we're
salt
guilty.
with, we put more salt on the salt.
So well, we're guilty too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but probably not as guilty as Mass Highway.
Yeah, but they have an exception.
Yeah,
There's an exception for public highways.
yeah.
Uh,
The big opportunity, and I think the planning board's aware of it. I know it's come up, is that should there be some regulations on private contractor salting of private parking lots? There's a fair amount of area in town that gets treated by private contractors, and nobody's paying attention to what they put down. You'd be lucky if they have a regulated spreader like we use, like a Cirrus unit that regulates or measures the amount of salt going out. And we track that. We track it because it's good to know, and it also helps manage costs. More salt equals more money.
okay, but they
No,
could start with parking lots within the Aquifer Protection District right now.
I guess they could. Yeah, that'd be a good topic for the planning board to take up. Right. Or would that be a matter of an enforcement issue since it's already on the books? I don't know.
It would go to our zoning code enforcement officer, wouldn't it?
Perhaps. Don't know. It's an important enough topic that probably the select board should discuss it.
You
Or
know,
should the planning board bring it to his attention because it's the zoning bylaw?
Yeah.
if I could add, there was a meeting that was proposed by Mark Barbadoro about zoning enforcement. I was thinking he was maybe, going more after the signage in town than, but this certainly falls into that same category, Brian. So I don't know when that meeting was scheduled. It was going to be with, I think, Mark, someone from the planning board, the town administrator, and I think there was one other person, but I don't recall, because I didn't volunteer to attend that meeting. So there is discussion going on about zoning enforcement, and you bring up a good point. I'll find out when that meeting was scheduled to happen, or if it happened, and what was discussed.
Okay.
And like I said before, this is something that where Acton could come to us and say, we'd like to see you enforce your zoning bylaw within the Aquifer Protection District.
So you have to ask how will the select board respond to that?
I don't know.
I need to step away for just a minute. The next thing on the agenda is discussions we've had with a couple of towns about the MWRA expansion and future conversations. Maybe Brian and John would like to take that up while I step out for just a second. Do you mind?
If you got to do it, you got to do it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think I mentioned earlier that we had met with Stowe. John set up a meeting with the town administrator of Stowe. Les coordinated setting up a meeting with Littleton and Acton. And that happened this morning. And I think we talked about it at the last meeting that we needed to talk to Acton. We've talked a lot with Littleton, but we've never really sat down with Acton and talked about how the towns might interact as far as water goes. And so what we came up with this morning was that we're going to continue to meet with Acton and Littleton and talk about our common interests and how we might pursue that. We didn't really get into too much detail about that. And John can fill us in on the Stowe meeting. A lot of this is prompted by the MWRA coming up with a plan to make water accessible to other parts of Massachusetts that don't have MWRA water right now. And so I think we've discussed this some. There is a report for the Metro West area, and Littleton, Acton, and Concord are interested in this. Ayer is involved, Groton is involved. Stowe is sort of interested. Maynard is definitely interested. Sudbury apparently is interested. But this is big long-term stuff that's going to be very expensive, and some towns are a little reluctant to get involved because of the cost and because of the money they've already spent on things. Like Littleton has just built a water treatment plant, so why do they want MWRA water? Well, Littleton is very interested. So it's very unclear how this is going to move forward, but Foxborough wants to stay involved, and Les has been keeping us involved. Les and I also attended a meeting of the 495 Metro West Consortium, where MWRA made a presentation on this as well. And with that, John, do you want to describe our meeting with Stowe?
Yeah, so we met with the town administrator, Denise Dombrowski. I've been in touch with her over the last couple of years about things in town. And she actually was one of the members of the selection committee that helped us select our new town administrator, Michael Johns. And she's been participating in the MWRA primarily in a listening mode, because Stowe has almost no real infrastructure except for the town center area. They have a unique situation where they actually provide some water to a couple of businesses, and they provide water for their own town facilities. They do have a major PFAS issue that they're trying to wrestle with, and they're also trying to stay in touch with Maynard because of potentially trying to see how they could connect to their lower village area, which adjoins Maynard. And in our discussion today with the director from the water district from Acton, he said that he was also just staying in touch with Stowe because of potential discussions of and this is, again, as Brian said, very, very long term down the road, whether there might be any connections between South Acton and Stowe along their boundary to try to share water. But for the most part, in our meeting in Stowe, Denise, the town administrator, basically said that there's very little interest in trying to provide public water in Stowe currently. They've got other issues that they're trying to deal with, and this has a lower priority for them at present.
Yeah, it sounds like I came in just at the right time again.
I think the other thing, when we had our meeting today, Acton has a water district, as many of you may be aware of, so they can operate in a different mechanism as opposed to have to get funding from the town all the time. They can get funding from their ratepayers. And they're also in the process of doing a study associated with their overall master plan for their water district. And the timing for that, I believe, is toward the end of this calendar year, 2024.
Yeah, it sounded like we aren't necessarily all that far behind what other neighbors seem to be doing, you know.
Right.
Well, Acton, this is not their first master plan.
Well, that's true.
Right.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
It's not our first water resources committee either. This is now number 3, maybe. I don't know, or 84, back when George Cruzen was on it.
Yep.
The thing is that you know, I've been listening into these MWRA sessions because I found out about them through Littleton's involvement. So I started listening in and came to realize it's a very big deal. If you try to do something at that scale involving many towns and bringing water in all the way through the MWRA system, expanding and so forth, how the heck would we ever get coordinated on that? And the only way to do it is to start talking to the neighbors about it. And on the assumption that if we ever needed to do anything, and by the way, the time frame here it's like decades, you know, which is part of the interesting planning problem. How does a town ever sustain a project focus that would span decades? You know, I don't know. Would have to go into a master plan somewhere and make the responsibility stick and be endurable. But at any rate, we all agreed it would be good to talk. And that means our neighbors in both Acton and Littleton are interested in having informal conversations just so that we're all aware of what's going on and keeping the lines of communication open, which I thought was, you know, a sensible approach actually, and was pleased to see that, you know, they're receptive. What will happen out of all this? That time will tell. I don't know. I think what we'll do is when we get the results back from our water resources RFP study, we'll be, I think, wanting to share that with them. And I think they have some reports they might be able to share with us. But we're talking very, very long-term stuff. I mean, sort of our overall framework, remember, is still the same. Can we continue to do what we've been doing without making major changes? And so this is all against the possibility of, well, maybe we do have to change at some point. And that's not just amount of rainfall. That's not just amount of pollutants. It also is the regulatory environment. What might DEP do to change the rules and change the requirements so that we be driven to do something that we would not otherwise even think of doing? So it's all about contingency planning for the far, far future. That's the way I look at it. By the way, I don't know whether Brian mentioned, but the session we attended with the 495 partnership, they presented the exact same presentation that I had seen, and it's posted up on our website under the MWRA document. So you can look for it there. And you can go to their website if you want even more information. There's a ton of stuff out there.
I have a question about maybe to any one of you guys who were at the meeting. You mentioned Littleton and Acton. Were those separate meetings, or was that all 3 towns getting together?
Both.
Okay.
we first had a meeting with us and Denise over in Stowe, and then we had a short meeting with Corey's team in Acton, and then we had one this morning that included Matt Mosteller and us, Matt from Acton and Corey and his team and us.
Okay.
So nothing to report except that we've decided that's a good idea to keep talking. So
Sure. And is it, will those conversations that you will agree as three towns to continue to talk, or just, you would all just continue to talk to each other?
Well, it's the three of us, and we have no official remit from the town to do this, and they
Yeah.
know that. Matt represents the district, right? So he's what is he, the director of the district, or I forget what his title is
I
exactly.
think he is.
I think
Yeah,
he's the regulatory director.
regulatory director, and of course Corey is water and sewer superintendent for Littleton, and we're just on the Water Resources Committee, trying to find out what's going on.
With no authority whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
Right, so we made it very clear that all these discussions are completely informal.
Right. And they were very happy with that. And that's how they see it too.
Okay, yeah.
And that's how they're going to report it back to their bodies as well. Informal discussions are ongoing. So,
Okay, and John, there's no Water Resources Committee in Stowe, is that what I should understand?
No,
from
I
you?
don't believe there is.
Okay,
yeah. Denise is kind of the focus for whatever they're doing, which sounds like not a whole lot right now.
What Stowe and Boxborough share in this MWRA discussion is we're the only two towns that don't have existing water infrastructure.
Right. That's why we're on the sort of almost on the radar screen. We're now
Right.
an asterisk on the report, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
All the other towns have existing infrastructure that they don't need to build that. They just need to get
Right.
the water to them.
Right. Yeah, Alan Cathcart, who is the director of the DPW in Concord, who is responsible for the water over there, he had a presentation which I told everybody about back in last month, early. Same topic. And I talked to him afterwards about, hey, you know, MWRA is offering to waive the fee to join MWRA. Given the magnitude of costs involved here, is that an important factor in making your decision? He said, absolutely not. It's chump change compared to the scale of investment required to actually build out a system. So it's just nice to know about if you have to do it, but we're nowhere near making a decision like that. It's decades in the future, if ever.
It is, and I think it's important to remember that these towns will probably all have to work together to make it happen, because the water would branch off from MWRA down in Sudbury, off one of the underground tunnels there, come up through Sudbury into Concord, and then start, well, it could go to Maynard first, but then start branching. So
Yeah,
it really isn't going to happen unless everybody works together on it.
right. So it's a very big python to wrestle with. So, next item, actually, Brian wanted to give us an update on some news on PFAS, which he may have already alluded to early on.
Yeah, I'm going to show a table. I'm afraid I'm going to screen share again. Maybe it's a very simple table. And if you can't hear me, I'll just shut it down. Are we seeing this?
Seeing your email inbox.
See my inbox. Oh, okay. About this one.
Nothing yet.
This may be the problem of not being able to toggle back and forth.
Yeah, I think you have to stop
I
sharing.
didn't see a way to get into it directly. Yeah, I didn't see. I don't know if Outlook's going to let me do this.
Oh, did you want to see that file that was in the email, the attachment?
Well, no, it was a separate email that had a table in it.
Okay,
And when I try to pull up,
there it is.
There you go.
oh, you got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the result of PFAS testing at the Hager well going back to 2021. And it goes up through, we were doing quarterly testing up until July of 2022. All results, raw and finished water, were non-detect. And I wanted to look at this because I was just curious, given particularly what's been happening up at CBK, whether PFAS might have reached the Hager well since I last looked at it. And this is suggesting no, although these results are more than a year old. And I think what's happening here is because we had all these non-detects, we're not required to test every year anymore. I tried to look this up in the regulations and I couldn't get a clear answer, but we may be on a detects of PFAS. Maybe we want to do some PFAS testing at Hager well without waiting for 3 years, given what's happening up at CBK. I don't know.
Yeah, by the way, the note on Brian's table, that comes from the EEA data portal for drinking water, so it's readily available.
Can the capacity of that Hager well be increased at all? Or is it maxed out?
That's a good question, Steve. At our meeting this morning, Matt actually asked us what the capacity of that well was, and I didn't have an answer for him.
It's roughly 70 gallons a minute.
70 a minute?
That's based on regulatory issue of trying to stay below the large capacity well regulations.
So it's permitted for 70.
Correct.
But it could actually be more.
We don't know. It was never pump tested, to my knowledge, beyond that.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Does anybody have a budget for testing for PFAS? I don't know. I don't know. Ed probably doesn't have a budget for that. That's not a cheap test, right? $500, something like that.
Yeah, for the new regulations, I believe I was quoted somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 and $450 for it.
Yeah. Well. Okay, well, nothing appears to be happening there, which is good. Brian had some other data he wanted to talk about, or a data resource. People are always interested in rainfall and precipitation, and there is a resource available from Cornell University. Brian, you want to tell us about that? Northeast Regional Climate Center, Cornell University.
Yeah, I sent around a table about what the last storm that we got was, and I've amended that table. I will send it to people, maybe rather than try to do a screen share on it. I can summarize it very quickly. Like Les said, there's a climate data center down at Cornell. There's also the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, which does rainfall estimates, and they agree fairly closely. There's an old system of calculating rainfall recurrence intervals called TP40, which goes back to 1961, I think. And that's what the Wetlands Protection Act uses. So they're using some rainfall data that is pretty out of date. And then DEP has made a recommendation that even the NOAA and the Cornell estimates of maximum precipitation are also out of date. And they've come up with ways to get around that. So I will send a table that summarizes that updates the one I sent before. And unless somebody wants to see it, I can try to screen share it. What it means is what happened in December was we had on the 10th and 11th, we had a fairly heavy rainstorm that worked out to be about a 1-year storm. using NOAA and Cornell. And then on the 17th and the 18th, we had what worked out to be about a 5-year storm. And so what that means, within a week apart in December, we had a 1-year storm and a 5-year storm. And so when we had the 5-year storm is not an enormous storm. It's not a 100-year storm, but it happened when the ground was pretty much saturated from the 1-year storm that happened before it. And driving around Boxborough, it caused a fair amount of problems. When I was driving around on the 18th, Codman Hill had a lot of standing water. DPW, there were several DPW crews down there trying to, I don't know exactly what they were trying to do, but they were trying to make the road passable. Liberty Square Road was shut down because Guggins Brook was overflowing the road, and they put a lot of riprap down on the downstream side of Liberty Square Road to prevent the road from washing out. And I noticed driving down the eastern part of Burroughs Road, they had a lot of standing water, which I had never really seen before. So maybe Ed Kukla can give us a little more information about what he discovered during that storm and what his concerns were about that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Have you heard anything from Ed, Dave, on that?
No, I haven't. But I just made a note to try to get some update from him on that. I think that would be interesting for the committee to hear that.
Yeah, on a very local note, Beaver Brook that goes under Hill Road just below my place, when the beavers have been in there in the past, it backs up quite significantly. It did not back up much this time, and the road, it did not overflow the road. Hill Road did not go underwater. Whereas there was a time
Mass Ave had a lot of standing water on it.
I never saw that. Apparently it was there when I wasn't, because every time I drove down Mass Avenue, there were no standing water, but you're saying you did see it?
Yeah,
right?
down by Bravo Pizza.
Yeah, that's where it would be. That's where it's been in
Yeah,
the
matter
past.
of fact, the fire department was out there trying to pump the water off the road.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. So
Yep.
in the past, when we've had a lot of rain, I've seen it on Mass Avenue, but not this time. So I guess it depends like where you were.
Well, Littlefield Road was flooded in both directions.
Hmm.
You couldn't get through at George Cruisen's, and you couldn't get through to Acton.
Yeah.
You could, but you had to,
Get up
Littlefield or Depot?
I'm sorry?
Littlefield or Depot?
George is on Depot, sorry, yeah. But Littlefield is the other end.
Yeah.
The water at Littlefield was significant. They had orange barrels to mark the lane you could go through, and it was, a foot deep.
Really? Wow.
The road's only a foot above the water there. Normally,
Yeah.
It's currently about 3 inches above.
yeah.
Well, this thing with Guggins Brook and Liberty Square Road, this is not the first time that's overflowed there. That overflowed there 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
So we might be looking at a culvert replacement there.
Mm.
I think there's going to be a lot of culverts that have to be replaced to minimize the safety of vehicles being able to move.
Mm.
And I suppose this will find its way into the hazard mitigation plan that is being worked on, right, Dave?
I would think so. And that was one of the things that was discussed. I think there was a couple of meetings ago. Someone came in. I don't know if anybody had watched that, but there was a presentation that was done about, and it was actually a presentation and gathering of information from people in the meeting and people on the Zoom. I don't think it quite got enough of a publicity prior to that meeting. I was kind of surprised at how it came across, but yeah, that's what they're looking at. They're looking at the impacts of natural disasters and mitigating those. So they should be coming back with some information for us.
Is that something we ought to recommend, building larger culverts?
I think what you should study is you should study the drainage area that's tributary to those areas. and determine whether or not it's better to release water faster or slower. Sometimes if you slow water down in the drainage area, you'll actually create the flood. Sometimes you have to let some of it go first, and you have to let some of it go and stay behind. But again, this is watershed management, and it's something that I don't think Boxborough's been doing at all.
Yeah, no, this was the first time I saw Depot Road. There's a small culvert between Liberty Square Road and Middle Road that was flooded, and the fire department was over there working with DPW trying to clear it away.
Yep.
Hopefully the new fire engine won't deal damage to any of the culverts.
You don't know what's going to happen, but a lot of the roads in this town don't have sufficient base under them to support saturated condition for long.
And of course, the more water we send downstream, the less water we have to recharge our aquifers.
Well, not necessarily less. It's just the timing. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have peak on top of a peak. And again, that's where the watershed management comes in. It says, you let some go so it stays even, then you want to stay even there, and then let the other stuff come back after it's been retained for a while. But again, these are things that you have to study and look at.
Yeah. We have nothing like that in town here. We have no manageable retention ponds, do we?
A few, not too many.
I mean, are they manageable to what extent, with manual gate closings and things, or what?
Well, they're pretty much regulated to meet the peak demands that were established when they were designed. And a lot of them are not only just retention ponds, but they're also leaching ponds. They allow the stormwater that's stored there to leach into the ground.
But they're not adjustable in any way, right? Sluice gates and so.
Not that I'm aware of, except for Suasco. Suasco is adjustable.
Right. Very interesting. Well, years ago, people were talking about not having enough water, right?
Yep.
Okay. Brief update. So Patch Hill monitoring wells, not a whole lot to report. You may recall, I think I reported some time ago that Grant Garvin came across some old monitoring wells up on the Patch Hill area where you can get off Liberty Square Road there and enter the Patch Hill Trail there. And if you go in there a little bit, there are some monitoring wells, old monitoring wells, kind of with the caps on them and a lock on it. And he took pictures and got GPS coordinates, and he's been wondering, whose are they? And is there some way you could get a transducer down there and find out what the state of water is down there? So that's been something I've been trying to progress now since April at very slow rate. But I did talk to Alec the other day before he went on vacation about that. I gave him the GPS coordinates that Grant got for those wells, and he is going to locate them on his maps. And he pulled up records related to the development that preceded Patch Hill, what became Patch Hill. I think it was called Baldwin Hill. John, you may remember that.
Yes, you're right. That's what it was called.
Yeah,
Baldwin Hills.
And the speculation is that maybe they were put in as part of the Baldwin Hill development. At any rate, Mary Nadarowski is trying to find out whether any of so some of that land is marked municipal, and some of it seems to be municipal with an asterisk on it. So some of it may have some kind of a restriction on it. She's trying to find out just what the restrictions are so that we can find out who, if anyone, is in charge of getting access to those wells. And then once I understand that, I think I'd like to recommend to see if the town administrator is okay with allowing this committee, or to have Ed go up there and pop the top off one of those wells and put a transducer down there and take some measurements. So just to get started. Grant is willing to volunteer his time. He's got the equipment. We just need to find out who we need to talk to about making sure we don't step on any toes. As far as we know, the town owns it all, but Mary is trying to make sure there's no funny restriction that we need to be aware of. So that's the latest on that. And I'll be telling Grant all this in an email once I hear back from Mary. She was working on this just before the holidays. It was nice to know that.
Built those wells.
Pardon?
Who drilled those wells?
We have no, I have no idea. I think that maybe we'll find out as a result of her digging in the files.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, it's not because she could find it by clicking into the GIS database. She and or Alec realized, oh, there was a prior development there. And apparently they have a lot of the old plans on file. It's on a shared disk that the town folks have access to. And Alec was able to find reference to the Baldwin Hill development. He pulled up the maps. I didn't have a chance to look at them yet, but Mary was going to do that and let me know if there was anything that seemed interesting. Right now, it did not look like there was anything of record that was of note. So my job this week is to find out, is there anything there, and then decide what to do. I think Grant would love to be able to see what's in down among those monitoring wells. And we'll see.
That's astounding that they could pull up an old proposed plan like that.
I know that would impress me. You know, I don't think that says everything is that well organized, but some of it's out there. Yeah. Yeah, in my fantasy world that you could drill into a GIS map and pull up anything, but we're not there yet.
So help me understand what the value of checking these wells. What does that do for us?
Well, you know, one of the things this committee started doing was we thought it would be a good idea to get an idea of what's the groundwater level around here and there and everywhere, or where we could, looking at existing monitoring wells. We pursued that for a while, but as we said earlier, we realized that wasn't a great idea because those monitoring wells were placed near septic system leach field areas to make sure no effluents were getting into the ground that shouldn't. So they weren't necessarily indicative of, you know, ambient conditions for groundwater.
Okay.
So Grant, being a retired hydrogeologist he thinks a lot about water. He's been a very helpful contact and resource in this area. He's just offering his expertise and time to go and investigate these wells and see what gives with them. If it turns out, say they're deep enough and have water in them that's measurable, maybe it's worth recording some of those things over time. I know at his own home, he has a couple of monitoring wells, I think, and he records data, and he's got several years worth of data, seasonal data on water levels. You can watch the water table go up and down, just more information about the state of water.
Okay.
They don't necessarily help us with anything, but a fun science project, if nothing else.
Okay, got it.
But if we decided to go ahead with this monitoring project that we've sort of put on hold, it could be a source of wells that are already there without having to drill new ones.
Yeah.
That are owned by the town.
Right.
Aren't on private property.
Yeah. So anyway, that kind of brings up to where we're at the end of. We have any try to be more organized about getting board updates. So have a little list here. Dave, anything to report back from the select board that this committee should know about?
No, I think the one that was touched upon earlier is the important one, you know, in terms of getting some sort of a mitigation plan in place for natural disasters. But we are gonna be dealing with some funding issues with the school department. We don't have exact numbers yet, but we've got a range, and there's, you know, there's a significant increase coming along, I think. And I think I was hearing some of my wife's friends were like texting back and forth today about they received their new tax bills came out. So I don't know if you all have looked at your new tax bills, but
I'm afraid to open it.
Well, you should. I think that's kind of I don't really understand how. I think it seems like that made a significant jump, but I don't understand how that significant jump happened now rather than later. But
well, first quarter is always a jump because you're now doing real bills as opposed to estimated. So
they catch up. Yeah. So that's it, that, most of what's been going on is, sort of town business, new, licenses,
Yeah,
Winterfest, new police, business as usual.
business as usual. Great. Janet's not here for the planning board. Steve, anything of note from the conscom?
There's nothing really that affects the water resources. We're just, we have a couple of open notices of intent that we're processing.
I'm sorry, could you say that
We
again?
have a couple of notices of intent that we're processing. They've both been taking a while, but that's mainly what we're working on right now.
Okay.
I don't think they affect us here.
Okay. And Brian, anything from Board of Health?
Well, we spoke about it earlier that they finally managed to pass that, I guess we'll call it a regulation, requiring oversight of all the zone twos in town, with the restrictions that DEP wanted.
No, that's a new regulation, you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I wasn't aware of that.
Is that on the website, Brian?
As far as I know, it should be.
Maybe we should talk about that more next time so people are aware of it. Has the planning board made any, well, Jen's not here. Do you think the planning board has advertised that very fact?
Don't know.
Don't know.
This is the Board of Health, and it's a regulation that the state was pushing us to implement.
Okay. All right. So that was fairly recently done by the Board of Health?
A year or so ago.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the end of agenda. Anybody have anything else they want to bring up at this late hour? Sorry for the late hour. Should talk about next time we're going to get together.
No, I'll just mention one thing, Les.
Yeah.
And there's something I talked with you about before. I mean, there's a lot of knowledge on this team. I'm coming to understand, relative to water in the town. It would be great to be able to provide some sort of education or presentation to the townspeople to make it available. I mean, we're kind of looking at proposals and understand, but just for people to understand, okay, they moved into town, they got a well, they had it tested. What do they have it tested for? And just to educate people about water, I think would be really.
Yeah, that's a great idea. In fact, I had a poster board presentation made up for slides pasted on a big board for Pfeiffer's Day that didn't happen because of the weather. And it's something I could haul out again, and maybe I'll show it to bring this to this committee next time. We can talk about it and see if we want to make that sort of a little package we could give to people. It actually I stole stuff right off our own website, on our water story, and where's the water come from? How's your septic system work? Basic stuff. Educating people about it is important. I mean, I did, by the way, on that note, you reminded me, I did talk to Mary Brolin about the fact that she got into the Globe from a
For the
story.
PFAS, yeah.
Yeah, and I said, Mary, your story was great because you're a smart, scientifically oriented person. Here, there were things that kind of surprised you. And I said, I think a lot of people would benefit from some kind of educational material. Would you be willing to help us, give us some feedback on a program? We'll put some stuff together. She'd be very happy to do that. So that's something we might want to pursue with Mary and say, hey, how would you react to this, and come up with something she can look at. Simple stuff, that not a lot of numbers and stuff like that.
Sure,
Big
sure.
things. What you should
Sure.
do,
Could you put that kind of stuff in the Action Unlimited?
Well, that's a very good point. I think Cassie is still on the call. I sure she's listed here. I have thought about seeing if news would be willing to run, educational articles from time to time along those lines, and I haven't really done anything about it yet, but that might be something we want to pursue with the Action Unlimited and start putting some educational material out there. So Cassie, if you're listening, I may give you a call about that. But yeah, I mean, it's been on our list since the beginning to do more about education and outreach. I mean, it's literally true that there are people who move into Boxborough who used to live in a large city somewhere, for example, and they never had a private well or a septic system, and they need to understand what they're responsible for, how it all works.
And we've tried to get that information onto the website. Janet has provided some of that.
Yeah, yeah. I think people need to be reminded that it's there and made it easy to find, easy to read, that sort of thing. So,
Well, it was a Board of Health put a bunch of articles together that was in the Boxborough Bee about
yeah,
where it come from.
yes, there was that one too. So we can gather all that stuff together and make kind of a story.
Yep.
Good, okay, all right. We can
I'm
talk
thinking
about that
maybe
then, too.
maybe even a set of posters that we could put up at the next town meeting in the back of the room or something like that. People can wander by. Or put them in the select board room when they have a meeting, but I'm not sure anybody goes to select board meetings in person anymore. Are you getting much of an audience in person these days, Dave?
No, I think it's usually it's anywhere between 2 and 7. You know,
Yeah.
it's not usually it.
It's a different world now, right? Okay, but we're not giving up on it. So
Good.
anyway,
Okay,
so meeting next time would be in February sometime. Unless we're going to do something, well, maybe we should do it late January. I don't know. Brian, you and I have an action to go and polish up and finish up the document so we can review it and approve it next time.
Yeah, what was there was something that was going to happen in February that we needed to complete something by?
was there an article submitted for the warrant?
The annual report.
Annual report.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So
I forget when that deadline is. But yeah, that's in February. Let's see.
But don't we want to get the RFP out? So
We do. I mean, let's see. Do you want to try to do something? Well, I need to get together with you. And do you think we could have that ready for the committee to review in a meeting, say late in January, like the 23rd
sure,
or 30th?
sure.
What do people think about those two dates as potential meeting dates? Those are Tuesdays at the end of January.
I could do either one, but I mean, the
Yep,
30th
either one.
I can do either. But to John's earlier point, you know, if we want to get it done, 23rd would be getting it done sooner.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. So why don't we do the 23rd?
Okay.
Same time, same station.
2 meetings in 1 month. My God.
Oh, I know. It's a blue moon. Okay, well, great. Well, thank you very much. Any other business or topics to bring up before we close off?
Nothing on the Harvard Sportsman's Club well removal list?
No, last I talked to Mike, they understand that the ball is in their court to do something, and he hasn't heard back.
Hurry up and wait.
Yes. Okay, I'll have to do
Make
a
a
motion.
Make
ahead,
a motion
John.
to adjourn.
Second,
All right, roll call vote. Stephen,
Hi,
Brian Lynch,
aye.
Brian Clemens,
Aye.
Dave McKiernan,
Aye.
John Markowitz,
Aye.
and Fox, aye. Well, thank you very much. We're adjourned, and it is 10:29. And I will remember to shut down the Zoom recording. Stop
Thank
recording.
everybody for their patience.